When he held any captives for ransom, he would hang them sometimes with his own hand by their testicles, and when these were torn away from their bodies, as happened frequently, their vital organs would burst out at almost the same time. Others he would hang by the thumbs or by the penis itself, then place a stone over their shoulders to weigh them down.
A passage from Monodiae, Songs of Self, the memoirs of the Benedictine historian, theologian, and author of autobiographical memoirs, the 12th century monk Hubert de Nogent. In the labyrinthine corridors of genealogical research, where the muted echoes of ancestors whisper secrets across centuries, I, Darius Ratmanesh, have unearthed from both my paternal and maternal lines figures of renown and influence, each a vibrant character in the grand, ever-evolving drama of history. These individuals, whose lives intertwined with pivotal moments, have enriched my understanding of the past and my place within its intricate tapestry. All these findings are a compiled collection of findings acquired after many countless and laborious hours of research over the course of several years of my family's historical documents, birth certificates, death certificates, marriage license, awarded or issued various documents and records with official seal, time and date, etc., and genealogical documents. I've encountered statesmen who shaped nations, Roman emperors, pirates, revolutionaries, even a practitioner of witchcraft or two, artists whose brushstrokes immortalized moments, and scientists who dared to unravel the universe's mysteries, even a Knights Templar, so on and so forth. Each discovery, a carefully pieced together mosaic, brought a sense of connection, a tangible link to the human story unfolding across time. Yet among this pantheon of notable forebears, one discovery struck me with particular force, leaving me reeling in a mixture of astonishment and profound unease. This ancestor slumbering in the vast, mysterious ocean of my gene pool was none other than my 26th great-grandfather, the tyrannical Lord of Coucy. This was one Thomas of Marle. Historical accounts painted him as a scourge upon the land, a man whose reign was marked by relentless warfare, wanton destruction, and the merciless subjugation of his people. Thomas of Marle, a figure so infamous that he earned the chilling moniker, the Raging Wolf. The name itself conjures images of brutality and ruthless lust for violence and cruelty. He was a figure of almost mythical cruelty, a stain upon the very fabric of his era, and indeed upon history itself. To find such a figure in my lineage was unsettling, to say the least. How could a man of such darkness be woven into the threads of my own being? The implications were heavy, a chilling reminder that even the most seemingly benign present is built upon the complex and often morally ambiguous foundations of the past. The discovery forced a confrontation with the uncomfortable truth that ancestry is not a curated collection of heroes. It is a tapestry woven with threads of all colors, light and dark, noble and ignoble. Thomas of Marle, the Raging Wolf, is as much a part of my heritage as any benevolent king or visionary artist. He is a reminder that the past is not always comforting, and that understanding it requires facing the shadows as well as celebrating the light. Born in the year of 1073, imagine, if you will, the Picardy region of France. Here, amidst rolling hills and dense forests, rises the Chateau de Coucy, imposing fortress, a testament to Norman strength and ambition. Within its formidable walls, a child is born, my 26th great-grandfather, Thomas of Marle. Little did the world know this infant would grow into a man whose name would be whispered in fear and revulsion for generations to come. He would become Lord of Coucy, but he would be known by a far more chilling title, the Raging Wolf. This was not merely a colorful epithet, a dramatic flourish added by some imaginative chronicler. No, this title was earned, forged in the fires of cruelty, and cemented by a reign of terror that shocked even his contemporaries. Historical records paint a portrait of a man so consumed by wickedness that he drew the ire of the highest powers, the King of France, the unwavering Catholic Church, and even his own father, Anne-Randy de Coucy, my 27th great-grandfather, all sought his destruction, desperate to extinguish the darkness he embodied. The era itself was a turbulent tapestry of shifting alliances and brutal power struggles. Chaotic politics provided a fertile ground for men like Thomas, offering opportunities for unchecked violence, and at times shielding him from the consequences of his depraved actions. He exploited these vulnerabilities, transforming the landscape into his personal hunting ground, a place where he indulged his monstrous appetites with impunity. Thomas of Marle was not simply a warrior, he was a murderer, a sadist, whose actions inspired both fear and profound disgust. Even his fellow warrior aristocrats, men who lived and died by the sword, who maintained their power through force and intimidation, recoiled from the sheer brutality of his deeds. They understood violence, they accepted it as a part of life, but Thomas crossed a line, venturing into a realm of inhumanity that even they found abhorrent. Abbot Suger, the esteemed biographer of King Louis the Fat of France, a man of considerable intellect and moral standing, described Thomas as a plague both to God and to men, lamenting his insupportable madness like that of a cruel wolf. This was not idle hyperbole, it was the considered judgment of a man who witnessed the devastation wrought by Thomas firsthand. Another religious leader, a man who undoubtedly knew Thomas personally, echoed this sentiment, branding him the most wicked man we have known in this generation. These were not the pronouncements of enemies. They were the anguished cries of men struggling to comprehend the depths of Thomas's depravity. The seeds of Thomas's reign of terror were sown early. He gained experience in the brutal world of warfare during the First Crusade, honing his skills, hardening his heart, and developing a taste for violence. Upon his return, he strategically married a woman with a hereditary claim to the strategically important castle of Montague, located in northeastern France. This union transformed Thomas into the lord of the castle, providing him with an impregnable base of operations, a fortress from which he could launch his campaigns of terror. Montague became synonymous with suffering. Thomas transformed it into a torture den, a place where captives were subjected to unimaginable horrors. He kidnapped individuals, holding them hostage and inflicting excruciating pain until they promised to pay him exorbitant sums of money. However, it is doubtful that his primary motivation was financial gain. Many of his victims perished before they could fulfill their promises, suggesting that the true object of his cruelty was the act of torture itself. His repertoire of tortures was as inventive as it was gruesome. One particularly favored method involved suspending men upside down by their testicles, a practice that speaks volumes about his sadistic nature. He seemed to derive pleasure from inflicting pain, and he applied this twisted sensibility to all aspects of his life. Even his other pursuits were tainted by his penchant for brutality. On one occasion, while pursuing a group of fugitives, he callously shoved a lance so far down one man's throat that it emerged from his posterior. On another occasion, when a wounded fugitive struggled to keep pace with Thomas's horse, he ordered the man's feet to be severed, providing him with a more valid reason for his slowness. These acts, seemingly gratuitous in their cruelty, reveal a man utterly devoid of empathy. A man who viewed human life as expendable, a mere plaything for his twisted amusement. Adding to the already volatile mix was the deeply strained relationship between Thomas and his father, Enguerrand. Whispers circulated regarding Thomas's legitimacy, fueled by suspicions that his mother had engaged in an adulterous affair. The possibility that Enguerrand was not Thomas's biological father, coupled with the presence of Enguerrand's new wife, who sought to secure her own children's inheritance, created a climate of distrust and animosity. Driven by his stepmother's machinations, Enguerrand disinherited Thomas, effectively stripping him of his birthright. This act of betrayal ignited Thomas's fury, unleashing a campaign of vengeance against his own father. He slaughtered Enguerrand's serfs, pillaged his lands, and burned his fields, engaging in acts of wanton destruction that shocked even the hardened nobles of the era. While private wars between nobles were commonplace, usually focused on territorial disputes or the pursuit of legitimate political aims. Thomas's actions were driven by pure malice. He was not seeking to usurp his father's power, gain territory, or achieve any other rational objective. His sole aim was to inflict pain and suffering, to punish his father for the perceived injustice of his disinheritance. The clergy and fellow warrior aristocrats alike condemned his actions, aghast at the depths of his depravity. Thomas had crossed a line, violating the unspoken rules of engagement that governed even the most brutal conflicts. His behavior was deemed unacceptable, even by the standards of a violent and unforgiving age. However, practicality, that ever-present force in medieval politics, ultimately brought Thomas and Enguerrand back together. The church, wielding its considerable power, annulled Thomas's marriage, employing a loophole that allowed them to invalidate unions based on tenuous claims of incestuous relations. This annulment cost Thomas the castle of Montaigu, the source of his power and influence. With Enguerrand reinstating Thomas as his heir in exchange for his loyalty and military assistance. Together they waged war on Amiens, with Thomas conducting the campaign in his characteristic fashion. These acts of cruelty served no strategic purpose. They were simply manifestations of his innate sadism, a testament to his utter disregard for human dignity. When Enguerrand finally succumbed to mortality, Thomas ascended to his rightful place as Lord of Coucy. He continued his relentless warfare against his neighbors, his actions characterized by such wanton violence that even his fellow warrior aristocrats were repulsed. He ravaged the lands surrounding Reims, Laon, and Amiens, massacring serfs, robbing the clergy, burning churches and fortifying his new castles in anticipation of retaliation. The French church, appalled by his escalating brutality, Thomas of Marle was no longer considered a Christian, no longer a member of Christendom. He was cast out, ostracized, and declared an enemy of the faith. Impelled by the church's declaration, King Louis the Fat, determined to consolidate royal authority and quell regional rebellions, raised an army against Thomas. One by one, Thomas's newly fortified castles crumbled under the weight of the royal forces. The castle overlooking Amiens, Thomas orchestrated an ambush in the dense woods surrounding the fortress. The ambush failed, and a mortally wounded Thomas was captured, brought in chains before the king. Even in his final moments, he seemed more concerned about the fate of the prisoners he held captive than about his own impending death. According to Sugar, God himself intervened to prevent Thomas from making a final confession that might have secured his entry into heaven. As a priest entered his cell to administer the last rites, Thomas lifted his head and his neck snapped. He fell back onto his pillow, dead before he could be absolved of his sins. Thus ended the life of Thomas of Marle, the Raging Wolf. His name forever etched in the annals of history as a symbol of unbridled cruelty and inhumanity.